Hello, good morning. Another video again. It's a Sunday morning. I recorded this yesterday, Saturday, because yesterday was a nice sunny day and I didn't expect to make a new video. But it feels like it's the first really nice day of the year. Although it was still about 10 degrees Celsius, so quite cold, but blue skies, sun was out. So I decided to do something which I would call a random riding. And it kind of looked like this. So I was going in the city. The first plan, let's say I will point it out when we're in the video. I sort of had a plan where I wanted to go. And then I was going random into the city. And I was kind of expecting when I got home and looking at this map, because I don't check where I am when I'm riding. I was expecting to be all over the place, but it turns out that I did kind of a nice sort of route without really preparing it. So that basically tells you that I have no directional feeling, because I kind of had the feeling I was going extremely random through the city, but it turns out I didn't. So first we are going to LeidscheRijn's Centrum, which is the local shopping mall on top of the highway. And then we go to the point where I would say we are starting off, and just random riding. I might talk a little bit less than normal, although what scares me about that if I don't talk for, let's say, a minute, you start listening to the audio in the background, that you get a scare jump the moment I start talking again. So let me know in the comments if that makes sense. I would almost say I feel uncomfortable if I don't talk for like 30 seconds. So I will put an overlay over the video explaining the subtitle thing again. But just if you are new during this random ride to the city of Utrecht, if you turn subtitles on, and especially one called Bodo, you will find that I provide information on the speed, location where we are, the address, so that you can use Google Maps or Apple Maps to track yourself where we are. So if you see something nice and you want to see more, you can just give in the address. Or if you want to have more precise, you can also go to a subtitle language called AVAR, and there I'll provide satellite information as best as we can. I think we now found a sort of a stable way of doing it. In the last few videos, and I even went back onto the older videos if you're interested. I updated most of them to this new system that's much faster. We now update about once every second or 2 seconds. So we hacked this into the YouTube subtitle system. And in the beginning I was unsure if YouTube would kick me out if I misuse the subtitles and change them, let's say, every 2 seconds. It turns out that they don't seem to mind, so that's why I updated all the videos to this new system. So it's much more reactive. The only downside is that I have to use the information coming from the bicycle. And as you already can see in the map, let me make it big. In the overlay, when we are going down the Douwe Egberts, which is the coffee factory local in Utrecht. You can already see that sometimes, I'm not sure why, but the GPS decides to put me in the wrong location. And as a result, if you see this weird jump, it's not too bad for practical reasons where we are. But the downside is that so when it jumps, let's say on the wrong side of the road for a second, also the speed gets away from us, because my software that I wrote thinks that you jumped quite far in almost no time. So that's sometimes makes the speed a little bit unstable. But I started using this data because it was more precise than the previous data, which was coming from Commute. which is an app that you can just install on your phone. But that has other problems. So this was still planned. And this is also a road that's being redone. It's almost like a ringway in a way. What's nice, in the top view, you can see that one of the staging areas for the Dutch trains is here. You see mostly the white blue ones, which are stop trains, so they stop quite often. The other ones are intercities. Let me leave it big for another second. So there are different of these spaces, but this is a big one where they store them. And you see already the jumping of the GPS. But I think this is probably the best compromise that I can make. I do wonder why the GPS is jumping sometimes. It almost seems like it wants to correct itself using the roads for cars. Yeah, what can I say? I will try to figure out who is doing that and if I can stop it from doing it. Police car. Three scooters. I was wondering if they were going as a group. So I didn't prepare a real topic or talk. So I'll just react on what we are seeing. And just to be clear, I have almost no directional feeling. So at times I am in the city and I go like, where am I? And it takes like say 5 minutes of bicycling before I get to a point that I recognize. And even if I recognize it, then I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how to get back home. Which is fun with these random rides, because at the end you mostly end up just aiming for the inner city or aiming for one of the bigger buildings, and then at some point you will get to a point how to get home. So this part of the road has been redone not too long ago to add more greenery in the middle. And they changed some of the road to a single path. So you're passing one of the, I would say, busiest roads in Utrecht, called the Amsterdam-Straatweg. It's Saturday I think it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. Since we are bicycling for about an hour, we end up around noon. We can already see that even if it's still cold when the sun is out, which is, I guess, a typical Dutch thing. Once the sun is out in March, then people flock to terraces and sit outside. They know it's too cold, really, but they do it anyway. Again, in the middle of the city, but we still have these tennis courts and other recreational areas. So here you see one of the roundabouts, which is not really in a form of a roundabout anymore, more like flattened, and how the bicycle paths are laid out. And these are giving some discussion. So up to about this point I kind of planned it. I knew I didn't want to go over the bridge, so I decided to go to the right here, and this is where the random riding sort of starts, just going wherever the bike takes me. And I was surprised looking back that it turned out that I was quite organized in a way. It didn't feel like it when I was riding. The part that was less organized is that at some point I found my way outside of the city, and almost by accident we are going to go to two forts, two of the defensive works. We don't really stop there. I'm not stopping at all. I'm just biking. But you do recognize it. And one of them is the one with the really tough cobblestones, or what I have described as the Dutch mountain biking. The bike doesn't like it. Well, not at 25 kilometers an hour. In the beginning, maybe you can also comment on that if you're bothered by it. I kind of like the aim of the camera. Sometimes I want to point it a little bit more down, but then you get other issues. So I kind of like that. But since I've put it around my neck, which is now using a neck strap, sort of, I would say about a few centimeters below my Adam's apple, which I think is a great improvement that we made a few months ago. But the downside is that you have to use on this camera something called automatic horizon, which works, but sometimes it's a bit, I would say, random but gliding. Sometimes you're bicycling for about 10 seconds and looking back at the video you go like, why is the video not straight? And then slowly it brings it back to its position, like it's doing now here, right? I hope they improved it a tiny bit, but I also get less and less bothered by it in that it kind of also makes it sort of smooth. It's sort of, I don't know. I was bothered by it in the beginning, especially if you don't turn this automatic horizon on. And that means that if it's crooked, it will always be crooked. And now it's sort of sometimes crooked. Somehow it distracts me less. It also gives you maybe a little bit more of a natural flow. But on this ride I was somewhere in the middle, and maybe you will see it, but I doubt it. Is that I looked down and then I straightened the camera because it was actually not totally straight on my chest. Then I'm braking. In fact, I'm stopping and then see sort of like I'm just walking. Okay. Des gets on the bike and the boy takes quite a few meters to get going. And then what he does is we'll look at it now because I only saw it when I was bicycling. She brakes quite quickly, and the boy has to put on the brakes. I think over here. Again, I look at it really close, but there's no way that I was going to hit them. I was going extremely slow, hands on the brakes. The speed in the subtitles sometimes is still a tiny bit off. In both in speed, but also in the it's a little bit delayed, of course. It's kind of normal with the GPS. I don't want to make it too technical, but the way that this works is that I only have the satellite position. So normally in a car or another, even in your phone at times it takes also the acceleration information. I don't do that, so I only get GPS points and time moments, and they kind of have to calculate what the speed was because you need 2 points. And of course you can smoothen that out, which you would do in a car, for example, but then you can't see me really braking at a traffic light and stuff like that, so it's a kind of a compromise.
That's okay.
It also means that sometimes, like over here, the speed is sort of jumping because the GPS location was jumping. So sometimes it's really stable, sometimes it just sort of seems to be a bit all over the place. And of course, the moment I'm talking about is the speed is indeed quite jumpy. I'm not sure why. I'm guessing it's when you're in the city, it's less stable. In fact, now that I'm looking at it, I'm quite unhappy about what it's doing now. Oh well. At least it's now stopping to 0 when we are at a traffic light. Interesting about the traffic light is a good example. You would assume that the white line is really going on a time. It tells you how long it still needs to go green. But you do notice that sometimes it speeds up and slows down, because traffic lights in the Netherlands, also for bicycles, are not on a fixed loop. They are really looking at the amount of traffic in the other areas, and if there is traffic, to decide who goes when, where, and it's at times quite a complex sort of algorithm. And that means that even if they want to provide you with information how long you still need to wait, it's not like a linear time. It's sort of more like sometimes it stops for 20 seconds in the same position and then continues. You can see it's still quite windy. So I was kind of, wouldn't say upset about this part, but I was quite quickly into the central part of the city again using this random riding. When I was home, I noticed that I was going quite straight line to the city center. But as a result, we are ending up, and I think it was about, at this moment I was thinking, okay, let's go for it. Since it was like Saturday and it was kind of nice weather, and we knew that today would be a less nice day. I suspected that quite a few people were going into the inner city, so I was like, well, 11 something, let's go in the inner city. In the city, I see if it's busy. So we are going to the busy bicycle crossing path again at Lovey, near the Vredenburg, so the old fort, to see if it was really that busy. It was not overly busy, but you already notice even in this traffic light, there's probably about, I don't know, 10 people behind me, 10 people in front of me. You also notice that I was next to a girl, and another girl sort of jumped in between. So even if there's no real need, people will sort of feel the need to jump ahead into the queue. Not in a bad way, but sometimes you go like, well, not really necessary. But see, for example, clearly he's in a hurry. I guess the good news for me, and you notice that in my driving style, it might look that I am really aggressive, although I do passes, but that's more on speed. But you see that my driving style is not that aggressive. At least I feel. Although I have admitted this before, it does look like, because this bike I'm using is an e-bike, although I pedal quite a lot. It is quite quick in acceleration, so when I feel it's safe, you see me speed up quite quickly. And there we are at the busy bicycle crossing, but now 90 degrees. So normally we're going in the other direction, and we are now looking at a round hotel, which is called, still called Smith's. I figured the hotel is a different name now. but the building itself still called Smith's. Make it big. You can kind of see the round building over there, and most of the videos you see about this place are taken from that part. The other building on the other side of the road was not there before, so the one that we see on our right, that was not there before. So in the old days the market would go much further. I on purpose went this way just to show you that, in fact, on this crossing is mostly with the rainbow zebras, that is mostly people walking here. It's known for bicycles, but and this makes sense. It's the outside shopping area. It's interesting to see on the map how indeed the GPS is all over the place. I guess it makes sense in a city that a GPS location is not that precise, but you see it jumping into building. That means that also my speed goes up because, well, I only have the locations that I have. And indeed you can see that it's busier. I wouldn't say disorganized, but I'm pretty sure when we are biking here in the summer, it will be way busier. But you do get a feeling that many people think different kind of jackets going around, but people do feel that, hey, it's sort of a nice day outside on a Saturday, let's do something. This is one of the bicycle streets that has been redone quite a few times. When I was a kid, this was kind of a road that my mother would warn me and be careful because there were some shops that I often go here. And it was quite a busy road. It had its own bicycle path before, and they removed it and then now turned it into the. In the end, there were so many bicycles. That's kind of the weird sort of movement you get once culture sort of catches up, I guess. So let's say in the 70s and the 80s, you had bicycle paths for sure, but next to the road, and at some point there were too many bicycles, and this street is a good example. There's just too many bicycles there to basically have a separate bicycle path. It starts making more sense to remove everything again and turn the whole street into a bicycle path. And then cars, I guess. So that's kind of the you end up in an old spot, with the biggest difference is basically in the mindset of people. So you can't go there directly. You sort of have to go with the route of having bicycle paths and protected lanes, and slowly take down the speed of cars until I guess people are used to it. And the numbers go up, right? So there's safety in numbers in this case. If there are so many bicycles and cars know that there are so many bicycles and they are bicycling themselves, at some point it becomes a habit, and then you can take the bicycle paths again and turn the whole thing into a bicycle path. So in a way, a street like this, I wouldn't say it's less dangerous, but it is probably less dangerous, because it's sort of in the middle, right? You would see these kinds of designs in many places in the world, but the difference is that cars, and you already noticed it here, cars just drive differently. And it's not because they are nicer in a way, but because I guess they are nicer, but they are trained this way, right? I mean, it just becomes second nature. Now, of course, you also have idiots, but you hardly see that in the inner city. It's more in the outsider areas where you also have roads like this, but there's I guess everybody has that more, especially if you have a fast car. or you are still in your 20s, early 30s, you might be more inclined to hit the gas pedal for the fun of it. And I think that's also human nature. It's not that surprising. So that's where even in the Netherlands becomes a little bit dangerous, that one in X amount of people in certain roads have that attitude. Life is dangerous, but we do it anyway. I think that you already noticed that with there's some others also coming up with a small boy, and I think there's a small girl and some other situations here. I think we see some kids on bicycles, if you look really carefully, in with parents in front of the back feature or on the back, where you go like, well, if he or she falls, that's kind of dangerous. Or they leave the kid on the bicycle basically to learn, but there is some danger there. But that's life, right? I mean, that's the freedom that Dutch kids get to hurt themselves. It's not good or bad. It's if it goes wrong, of course, parents get blamed. They would go like, "Oh, why did you do this?" But if you survive, I'm pretty sure if you talk to people who grow up in the Netherlands, they are happy that they got this freedom to do weird stuff when they were kids in the inner city, to put themselves into dangerous situations at times. Instead of being sort of locked up in the safe space. I know I'm sounding preachy again, but the more and more bicycle and the summer gets going, you especially start noticing the way that parents teach their kids how to ride a bicycle in the city. It's always fun to see. One thing that did happen during my random riding around is that sometimes I get confused. So, for example, I figured that these three buildings I could see from the canal. So I was like, okay, maybe we can go to the canal. Again, I had no idea where I was. I didn't know that it was in Tuindorp. I kind of guessed we were in Tuindorp, but I figured we were closer to the canal, but it doesn't make any sense. So in this case we do see these big buildings, but clearly there's no canal there. Although this one does have, I would argue for us quite a big parking area. But I guess it's all relative. Also notice here that some of the crossings there are no traffic lights, which although semi-busy road, but also they made the whole intersection red, right? So again, a signal to cars, hey, this is not per definition your space. And here you see that basically when there are kids around, schools, you see these extra sort of wooden markers, mostly red and yellow, kind of playful, to signal there's kids around. On this ride we do hit on quite a few pure randomly on some trains. I guess I passed them back and forth, and maybe I even passed them 2 or 3 times. I can now see that in the overview that I know that I'm going back here because there's another line. Oh, not. Oh, sorry, that's the bicycle part. No, we are going back on this route. We see it already slightly. I hope you can see this, that the red line is already also going back. guess this is the only part where I was really sort of, I wouldn't say lost direction, but I sort of somehow ended up in the same location 2 or 3 times. I kind of like riding around like this because it's also, I wouldn't say preparation, but in a way it is. You get to spots where you go like, hey, next time I will make a ride to this one. I find it also when I'm in different cities, especially in foreign cities, like London, for example, or New York, you sort of... I like public transport because, well, I don't have a car. But you sort of have the feeling that, or Berlin is also an example, you sort of use the metro or the underground and you sort of have a feeling of where an area is. And you kind of know the surroundings of that area, but you don't know how they relate to other parts of the city. Because you sort of go underground and you pop up another place. You have no idea how the relationship is between these 2 areas. And I even have that in my own city where I sort of go like, because I went by bus or just don't pay attention, that you kind of don't know how different areas sort of hook up together. Ah, now I know why I was going back. Look at the map. I was kind of forced because this is like a circle. So it makes sense that I went back because there's no other way to go. There's a highway on the top. So where are we? We are in Noordoost. I will not lie. I'm not sure I've ever been here before. I will look into when they was built, because if you see the structure, it's kind of sort of a circle arrangement. You don't see that often. But it does explain where in this random riding I was kind of forced to go back. I was pondering about what this water was, if it was leading somewhere. But again, looking at the helicopter view now, you kind of know that they just put the water there to have some water. It's not part of... you see it quite a lot. Maybe I should look into that a little bit more, but it almost feels that, especially in the last 20 years, they connected a lot of the waterways up to each other, at least in my mind, if they were not historically already. And they try to bring in more and more of these water areas. I'm guessing it also cools the city down when it's so hot, and it just makes it more livable, I guess. I do watch quite a few also bicycle videos in other countries. One thing I do notice, especially if we go to the map, is how green our country actually is. Sometimes it's a little good to compare and look at other places. Of course, this is because we get so much rain. But it seems to be comparable. More green in the city. It's a pity I didn't notice these sort of round roof homes with gardens on the inside. Quite deep gardens, actually. If you look at the size of the home and then the size of the gardens that they have. So this kind of if you are talking about a white picket fence construction, this is more realistic in the Netherlands. You have a home and in the front you might have a really small sort of strip, maybe even like 3 or 4 feet, which you could consider a garden, but it's not really a garden. But at the back of the home you do have a garden. And depending on the building, you can also, this would also be nice to, you can see these vacation homes almost. Yeah, they look like vacation homes. So in newer setups, they try to do like communal garden. I don't think that's too big of a hit. I don't think it's somehow works in the Netherlands. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people in the comments say, well, we have one and it's used a lot. But I noticed that people kind of like their private sort of little space. And you also see combinations where you have people still have like a back garden with a fence around it, or at least some boundaries depending on what your privacy demands are and how well you like your neighbor. But then it sort of flows into a communal garden. And now I decide to go next to the tree. Flatgebouwen. Actually, you never thought about where the name is coming from, so we'll Google that. High rise, I guess, but I'm not sure why we call them flats. Because I'm stupid. I would say on average in the Netherlands they were considered high when they were like, I don't know, 15 floors, 12 to 15 floors. You can see the bicycle jumping again in the helicopter view, right? Maybe I'll put some more work into there and try to fix it somehow. I'm a software developer, so at times when I'm looking at something, I will go like, well, maybe I can fix it this way or this way. And again, another train. In this case, it makes sense because we are going back to the way that we came. Oh, I will filter this out, so you might not hear any audio here because I filtered this out. The guy behind me was talking about how his grandma just passed away and he had to go basically to say goodbye to her. I figured that was best to take out, so I should remind myself to take this out. I will probably plaster some other audio over here. So if this sounds a little bit weird in the background, you know what it is. I've also probably tuned down the audio a little bit compared to the last two videos, which almost on purpose I left the audio quite high or reasonably high, because I wanted to show you how much extra noise cars would bring. But I also think it's sometimes distracting, so I'll probably tune it down a little bit. And now I think somewhere over here I sort of decided to leave the city that I really didn't plan, but I was like, okay, well, then I saw the sign, let's go up to the fort, and now we are next to one of the forts. So you can see it in the big picture. I'm not really going there, but you can see one of the forts that we are now, the small one we are now sort of circling around. And these are the stones that are really not that nice to ride on. Later we get a few more. You can see in the big picture there, you see part of the fort to the right, upper right. They're doing quite a lot of fixing here. I'm not sure what they are fixing. And then we get out back to the bicycle path. Again, on the helicopter view, you can see some of the old defensive structures. So by now I know that I'm out of the city, and the idea was to random ride into the city. So I now set myself to the task of how do I get back without looking at the map into the city. I guess these are moestuin. I'm not sure. Small gardens over there. I can't imagine that being sort of homes. Looks messy. So I don't want to get too much into political issues, but these moose gardens or these small gardens that people have to grow their own food. They are, at least in the Netherlands, next to these train tracks quite often. And you can argue that it's probably not as good for you as people think that it is. Oh well. What doesn't kill you make you stronger. I do like the fact that when I'm looking at I'm quite happy with the helicopter view. And like I said, I'm using Google Earth for it. So if you want to make them yourself, or even just see when you're using your phone, which is not perfect, but also quite usable as a GPS tracker. It's kind of interesting to see if you're walking in a city or you're on a bicycle, to go back into Google Earth and use this helicopter view kind of tool to see where you are and how close you were to certain things, so that you can either go there next time, explore a little bit more, or just give you a feeling of where you are. Somewhere in about 6 or 7 months ago, if you go back in the video list, you'll find that I talk about how to do this and how to use Google Earth on your desktop, Windows or Mac, because you do need to install it. It's not Google Maps. And how to use its helicopter view, because it's very interesting to explore a certain area. I even use it if I'm going somewhere, because you don't really have to be there. I know that sounds weird, but you can even, so I'm now using this helicopter view, but you can even point the camera much lower, so basically almost to eye level, if that makes sense. And pre-visit a place. What I mean with that, for example, let's say I want to go to one of the outer areas in New York. Let's say, I don't know, we are close to Breukelen, so let's say Brooklyn, not really an outer area, but I want to go there. I want to see if I can use my bicycle, or what it kind of will feel like if I'm walking or bicycling around. How would that work? You can sort of plan a route. I do use it in Commute, to be fair. And there I can save it as a GPS file, even though it's not really driven, but it's virtually. And with this GPS file, I can load it into Google Maps. Sorry, Google Studio, which is the application we are using here. So the one that I'm now making big. You can load that data and then you can sort of write this route where you've never been. So you can look in the helicopter view, you can look around, and you can also, what I'm doing, sort of put the camera, I think it's probably like 200 meters high and angled backwards so that you get this helicopter view. And it gives you a pretty good feeling together with the street view. Of course, pretty good feeling of where you are. And again, we made it to a fort. Make it big. We'll circle around one of the pointy parts. So my goal to get back to the city is kind of failing at the moment. But I know where I am. So now I know I need to take this small road. There you can see the fort in front of us. And here you can see what I mean with this horizon sort of, I wouldn't say bug, but you can see how slowly it's sort of correcting the horizon. So we found the entrance to the city again. Let's see how this countdown works. I actually aimed the camera to it so that we can watch. It goes, and then it stops, I think. Yeah, you can see it stops and then it goes again because the algorithm decided that on the other side probably the cars need to go first. If you're new to this channel, I've talked about it before. The inputs for these traffic systems in the Netherlands are quite complex. Some of them even detect if it's raining, and it will give the bicycles a head start if it's raining, give them more green, which is nice. Of course, it's playing mind tricks in the end. I'm not saying that it's fake because it is real, but part of any traffic light, I guess, if they have to use it. It's also a mental game. It's how do we give people the feeling that they are not waiting forever and progress is being made. Of course, I'm never happy with the technical solution, so I'm now quite, I wouldn't say upset, but don't understand why the GPS is sort of jumping all around. I doubt if I can fix this, but you're also a little bit dependent on the software updates that, in this case, Bosch, so the brand of bicycle that they use, or the engine at least part, and the computer part. I'm guessing they decide how to clean up the GPS data, and I guess it still has a, let's say, prefers to pick roads instead of the location that GPS tells us. And sometimes, like the last few days, the precision was quite high, but clearly on this ride it's sort of, let's say, a little bit less accurate. Although I do hope that you agree with me that in general it's pretty awesome that without much effort from my side, because basically, of course, I have the camera on and I need to do some stuff when I'm riding, but it's not that much anymore. So the bicycle itself automatically, if I turn it on and I start driving, it will track my position using in the end also my phone as a GPS device. And I don't have to think about it. So basically not only the trips that I'm recording, but also the normal ones will automatically have all the GPS data. So if I go into the database, because it's in a commute, keeps it in a database for me, I see hundreds and hundreds of bicycle rides that I'm taking. This can be handy at times if you want to redo it. Of course, if you're privacy oriented and you think commute is going to somehow, I don't know, count how often I go to certain locations, then you might want to turn it off. I don't care. So making these videos is actually becoming, it takes me a few minutes to prepare for it. Basically I have to put the camera around my neck, of course. Put the microphone on the top of my head. So I put it in a baseball cap on the back with a big fluffy thing called dead cat, quite a big one. So it looks a little bit weird that I have this fluffy thing on the back of my head. But if people are laughing at me, then at least will be behind my back. Literally, so I don't see it. I'm pretty sure some people notice it, but probably not many. So then I have the transmitter on my chest. So basically, it's only you need to send it about 10 centimeters to the camera, but I do use a wireless setup. So that takes, I don't know, about 30 seconds to clip on. Then I can jump on the bike. Yeah, the last part I have also I've shown you before is this almost watch-like device that I can put on my right arm. So sometimes by accident I put it into the picture, and it's like a remote control. I don't see the picture, which I don't want to. So here we are crossing. We have been here before, right? So probably didn't notice when I was riding, but clearly we have now crossed this roundabout 2 times. So yeah, it's like a watch, but it only has 2 buttons. It tells me record and stop, and it tells me how long we still have battery power and of the camera, and also how long the recording has been. So that I basically use that to sometimes see how far we are in the recording. So for example, I can already tell you that we are not making it back home on this battery. So we end this trip about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes less optimal, that we couldn't fully make it back. And I decided not to put in a new battery. So we just end up where we end up. But I kind of knew I was running out of time because I can look at this watch-like device. That's quite handy. At some point, and I don't want to be too distracted when I'm on a bike, if you see my my steering bar, it's very clean. I don't have like 5 different devices on it. Of course, if I'm going somewhere, I do have my phone to see where we are. But I also, for example, could put a small monitor there or see my picture on the phone when I'm riding. But I get too distracted. So the nice thing about this almost watch-like remote control is that it doesn't show me any of the picture that I'm taking. It just shows me I am recording and we are now 30 minutes in. So I sometimes glance at it simply to see if the red light is still blinking, so that I know that we are still recording. and it tells me how far we are in the recording. I did ask DJI, which is making this camera, to add a few features. I would like to see, for example, the LED light can be different colors, and the screen can also be it's a black and white screen, but it can of course blink at me. I would like it to show me when the audio is in trouble, for example. So we are back in Tuindorp, or Tuinwijk. Tuinwijk and Tuindorp, I guess is sort of the same. I'm assuming this is it. I've only lived here for about 50 years. There is some good news now that we changed to the GPS data provided by not Commute, which is a worldwide app, but this is from Bosch, which is from Germany, of course. And I'm guessing that they, I don't know, maybe they are a little bit more precise, or they know a little bit more the setup in the Netherlands and Germany. Because it does seem that especially the height information is much more correct, so I don't have to correct it a lot. So sometimes we see a negative number, meaning that we are below sea level. And sometimes we see it go up to maybe 2 meters, 3 meters. So that's much more realistic. So one thing you see quite a lot here is young gentlemen with their kids on the bicycle, on the bakfiets. I think there were 2 kids in this one. And he actually goes off to talk to them, or I'm not sure what he was doing. He was changing something on his bike, and I was wondering what he was changing. One thing what is nice when we are waiting here is hopefully we'll get back into the picture, if I'm lucky. You see this crane behind that grey building, which is in front of us. Hopefully we'll flip around. And it's kind of like, it's amazing that Google can already do this, create these images, but you can also see that it has like holes in it, so parts of it are sort of flying in the middle of nowhere because the pictures it took are not complete, so it has to guess what the shape is, and it's sort of parts of it are flying in the air. Anyway, what I like about the again, I'm fascinated by infrastructure and how things are built. So what I kind of like, of course, is that you can see how the road designs are and how the roundabouts are laid out. And also, especially because you kind of don't notice it, but how slowly more and more roofs of cities are being reused for solar cells. Of course, these are older homes, so they are not their default. So it's basically people investing their own money to install them. But you see on newer buildings, they are kind of, I would say default, but I'm guessing it's becoming way more normal. It's kind of an interesting sort of building style here. So my aiming point was to go to the windmill. This is a very high windmill compared to most, so it's easy to find back. You can also see it in the map. It was a very nice morning. So you can see we are now about 5 meters above sea level, so this is an area which would be safe. My home is a tiny bit above sea level, about 1.5 meters. So if things go bad, I have the fun part, I guess, in Utrecht is we will be on the edge, so we will become like a seaside city. Sometimes foreign people ask if, especially if they learn how much of it is below sea level, and how we react to climate change. The practical thing is, of course, we are been doing this for like 400 years. So if it becomes a problem, then many parts of the world are in trouble. We are probably the last ones who would be in I wouldn't say no problems, but because we already invest quite a lot of money into it. But we know what we are dealing with. Maybe that's the best way to say it. And people think it's mostly the sea level that is a problem. Realistically, especially in a country like ours, is all the rivers coming in is more of a problem. So. Because the water has to go somewhere, and if that pattern changes and there's more water coming into the country from the rivers, that is, can be an issue. So lots of the water management is also about giving the rivers more space, so that not for defensive reasons. So before we're looking at at some of the defensive structures which are using the water to be able to flood certain parts of the grounds as protective measures or for defensive measures. But now we are creating the same sort of spaces, but more to give the water space if it needs to, that some parts can be flooded. There's an overflow for the rivers. And we are back at the busy highway. The busy bicycle path. And considering you were already about an hour into this drive, I was aiming to go for the underground bicycle parking again. The 12,500 bicycles underground spot, because I know that people enjoy it. I was undecided where I would go. Would I go over the Vredenburg, so where the buses are now at, or would I go straight and then... So you see many, when we start riding again, many bicycles sort of go diagonal over the bicycle path. You can see how many people are walking there, right? Not super busy yet, so in the summer it will be more busy. But it is busy. So many bicycles will go in the 45 degrees angle, and I'm one of the few which go straight ahead. And prove that we've already been here, right? But now we are on the other side of the hotel. So you see most of them are going. I kind of should have been on the other side, but since I changed my mind, but I think it was only 2 people all going this direction. Trying to find our way. So I cross here and have to merge into the other bicycle traffic. Then in about 15 meters I want to go to the left. So I kind of worm my way, negotiate my way that I want to go over here, following the postal worker. So the orange and blue is the colors for the postal service. And again, we are next to, let me show the map again, next to the water where the highway was. So where the water was the highway. Of course, it was first a canal. And then in the 60s, they decided to turn it into a highway. And they did it in the 70s. And it was there for 30 years. And then they removed it again. They put the water back. Because it was a highway to nowhere. It basically was about a mile of highway. It was a stupid idea, and it took them like 30 years to figure it out, take it out again, and put the water back. And we have to go here because there's no other way to get to the underground parking, which I want to ride through. For no logical reason, but it's fun. I'm wondering how many bicycles are actually, because maybe I should explain a little bit about this bicycle path through the bicycle parking. And you can see there's still lots of bicycles on this side. Notice how many bicycles are outside, but also on the other side, I'm also pointing out, it's not like everybody can park them inside. But also it's a realistic bicycle path just going through it, right, to get to the other side. I didn't have to in this case. And I decided to go quickly through it, but then I was blocked by this guy. He's going to the first floor, I think. Yep, so he's going the other way and I'm going here, and now I'm speeding up. Because I always go slow to it, and now I decided, well, let's go fast. So it's really difficult to see the signs, but you can see it was quite full. Most rows only had 5 or 6 places left. But this path is being used by quite a few people just to get from one side to the other side of the building. And if you're new here, this is part of the central station, which is the biggest train station in the Netherlands. So the bicycle parking, you can go there and get on the train. You're like, what do you want? Of course, I think she was, I'm not sure if this is fair, but I think she was on her phone and sort of weaving around. I have to go back to see if she was actually on the phone. Of course, now we're going below all the train tracks. You can see there are quite a lot of them. And out the other side. So we've been here before, but if I would go to my left, it's the other side of the train station. So the reason I'm telling you this is that you see on front of it, I'm aiming the camera a bit there, I think. You can see there's also temporary bicycle storage, 2 layers again. Quite a lot of bicycles over there. And now we are taking the last 5 minutes of the video. We are, I would say, taking the boring route home. This is the area where I grew up. So going from my old place where I used to live to where I live now. He got a fine. But you do notice, if you've been watching the last few weeks, that it's getting busier. Of course, people always say the Dutch always bicycle, we are not made of sugar. But in reality, especially in the weekends, if the weather is nicer, so you see more bicycles. This is sort of the in-between month. So March is typically people are confused on what they should wear. You see the negotiation going on. I don't think in the last year, I don't think we have had any bad interaction between me and other people. So that's also something I noticed online, that there's sort of an aggressive mood between the different road users. I wouldn't say you never see something happen in the Netherlands, but it is sort of an easygoing flow. Look at this one. This is an outside coffee area. And again, it was still kind of cold. But people just decide, okay, we need to go outside and go to our favorite coffee place and sit outside. There's another one coming up, not as busy. That one is called Coffee and Me. My old parents' home. I don't want to make these talks too personal, but riding next to that home, that was the last home that they got. Yesterday we were talking about the prices of homes and how expensive they get. I guess I was lucky because, well, lucky is relative. I inherited that home, and I was able to sell it with quite a big profit. So that's now part of my pension and part of the reason I guess I can now work 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week. That's not totally true, I was already doing fine, but it does help. So when I'm riding there, it's sort of a bittersweet feeling. So again, you see here it's not as busy yet because it was early, but it will be busier later today. And also you see this little pole here, which is not as nice of a story because there's still some flowers there. Because that's where a girl was killed by a bus a year ago, a little over a year ago. And people are still putting flowers there, so yes, there is danger. And although this is considered to be an unsafe road, I don't really agree with that personally. But accidents can happen. In this case, and I'm not saying that as a blame part, but there were asylum seekers, and was a little girl. She was not, I guess, not that used to it, how things work here, and she got hit by a bus. As far as I know, because I don't think there's any official finishing of the report. I didn't check into it. I should check into what if they found out the reason what happened. So we're by the end of the ride. So thank you for watching, because I think in about 10 seconds the camera cuts out. So see you in the next one. Bye bye.